Did you ever get a good deal on something and it just seems too good to be true? Well, that's today's story on this 2013 Suzuki rmz250F that I scored from a buddy of mine in need of some quick vacation money. Majority of the time when this happens, I recommend running for your life in the other direction. However, today's tale encompasses just a little more beneath the surface. Will it be a good come up or bad for business? Stick around and let's find out.
Kids, don't try this at home. Welcome back, Stupid Fast Nation. Hope y'all are having a great week and weekend. We're gonna keep this one pretty short and pretty simple. I picked up this 2016 Suzuki rmz250F. This is an electronic fuel injection bike. I scored this thing for under $1,000. That's right, I got this thing for a pretty sweet deal, but it doesn't come without its challenges. See, these Suzukis, they have a couple major issues that I'm aware of. I don't know all of the issues that these things have, but I know of two of the biggest issues are, number one, the cams actually wear the inside of the cam caps out, the aluminum inside the cylinder head and the actual cap itself. That is a big issue with some, I think it's more of the earlier bikes. I don't think it's all the later ones. I could be wrong, correct me in the comments below. So I know that's one issue. I'm not sure if it's because people aren't doing oil changes on time or if it just drops oil pressure or if it's just from over revving the piss out of these things. Not sure there, but we will dig into this one just a little bit, check that stuff out, make sure the valve clearances are good. And then the other main issue, now I didn't know that this issue carried up all the way into these newer generation of bikes because I've owned a small handful of the 04 to 06 and even some of the 07, 08, 09 RMZ 250s and 450s, and they all seem to have this one issue on the side case where they crack. The kicker idler gear is in between the clutch basket and the kicker, and what happens is when you kick these things over, I don't know if they're just not tuned properly or what the case is, but from kicking them over for a period of time, they tend to push up on this gear and then break the case along where this idler gear actually rides. So guess what? That is why your boy got this one for so freaking cheap. So with that being said, we're gonna take this $500 RMZ250, try to turn this back into a decent running, driving bike. Let's get started. Let's get into making this thing run and ride.
I've been on ghosts as a kid. Now I got house full of kids. Where I keep when you're sick. Keep making that money flip. I've been on ghosts as a kid.
All right, guys, and before we get started tearing ass on this RMZ250, let's talk about today's video sponsor, the Wind One K20 electric bicycle. Let's check out the specs and features of this bad boy.
This Wind One K20 retro electric bicycle has a vintage style that meets modern technological advances and has a huge 26-inch fat tire designed for all terrains with a tread pattern built for superior grip and slip resistance while also having an adjustable seat and handlebars, which really complements all heights and riding styles. It also features disc brakes and a great 48-volt, 15-amp-hour battery and 750-watt motor delivering all your daily travel needs. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get this thing unboxed real quick, take this thing for a quick test ride. These things usually come pretty pre-assembled with a good charge on them and usually just have to throw on the front wheel and the handlebars and boom, you're done. These things are ready to rip. Woo! This thing's heavy though, I'll tell you that. The Highboy P6 is a lot lighter than this one. Not a lot lighter, but close, So we have a box of goodies here. And honestly, I love these fat tire bikes. I don't know why. I've grown an addiction to these electric bicycles. They're just so nice, especially when you're out here in the country and you want to go to the local store or whatever. You don't want to start the car up. You get on the bicycle, you just go for a quick little ripper, you know what I mean? With that being said, let's get this thing out, let's get it assembled, and let's get this thing, take it for a test ride. All right, guys, let's give this thing a test and see how she does. It took me a few minutes to find the power button. It's right here below the plus and minus switch. The manual says it's on the right side of the battery box. Don't listen to that. It's right here. They also don't tell you a top speed, but we are gonna take this thing in stupid fast fashion and see what she does. I'm a 250-pound guy. Let's see how fast we can get this thing to go.
All right, all right, all right. I'll tell you, the one thing about the electric stuff that's pretty cool is the torque. They just have a ton of torque. 30.5 with my 250-pound ass on it. All right, well, let's try a downhill run because a lot of times you can get a good bit more out of these on the downhill, obviously. I was thinking about getting my kid out here on the other bike and having him race with me. But he biffed it once and broke his arm, so I don't know that that's a good idea. It was on a scooter, not a bike. But nonetheless, I don't think that I need any sort of reenactment of that. So maybe not race today. 32. 32.5, that's not bad. All right, guys, and as always, if you want one of these bad boys, I'll drop a link in the description below and my comment. Let's get back to making this rmz250 a freaking ripper. Let's go.
It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. Misunderstood. Get up, had to beat those eyes.
Alright, now we can get to the fun stuff. We gotta start by taking off this clutch cover and draining the oil so we can assess how bad the damage actually is and see if we have to pull the engine out or if we can do this with the engine still in the bike.
Sheesh, that is gross looking. Kids, don't try this at home. Sheesh, that is so gross.
Now we can get the clutch basket and surrounding equipment off so we can get a better look at the crack and determine a feasible solution moving forward.
Those eyes understood. It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. And now I'm good. Wake up and I do my part. Wake up and I do my job. Just how I should. It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. Misunderstood. Get up, had to beat those eyes. Got up and I beat those eyes. Understood. It was always me versus me. It was never me versus you. And now I'm good.
Alright guys, this is the actual issue here. You can see the case cracked up and through where the idler gear rests on this pin. I can't even get that out. We're going to have to get that out though. So this guy goes on here, and the clutch basket gear goes here, the kicker gear goes here. When the kicker goes, that rotates the basket, and which in turn rotates the crank, which in turn starts the bike. So I don't know if it's like a leverage issue with how these three gears go, or if it's like the material's flawed from the factory, but this happens on a ton of Suzuki motorcycles. Comment below if you've had this happen to yours, because I have seen this now on at least 6 bikes that I've had in here. And even still, when you go through and you carve all this out, you heat it up, you pull it back in, you get it all back into spec, and you weld both sides of this, sometimes they still will break again. And so it kind of sucks, because even I've had them where I put a brand new case half on and this still will break. I don't know what the hell is wrong or why they do that. I mean, it's got a good compression release in it. Previous bikes that I've had and done this to have had compression releases built into the cam from the factory. That's how they come. But yet still, for some reason, they break here. So comment below. Let me know your horror story.
Well, looks like we're taking the engine out after all. Having the engine out will allow me to have better access to the sharp inner corners of the case with the TIG torch, which can be a real pain in the ass to navigate sometimes.
Gotta get my curls in for the day. Alright guys, so I can't say that I'm excited that I had to pull the motor, but we did find a few lingering issues with this. First off, the sprocket has looked like it's seen better days, almost like it's been through the Cold War or something, because every tooth but one single survivor is knocked off of this thing. Also, you know, I couldn't quite get the clamp over these cases to get it to come down properly, even with the exhaust off, and it looks like somebody tried to epoxy this. So we might wind up cutting this and cleaning everything off with a flapper disc, because aluminum has to be extremely clean when you weld it. and then we'll try and place it back on with the shaft in place. That way everything is clearanced properly, and then lay some really thick, nice beads on this. But yeah, guys, it'll be much easier to do the valve clearances on this thing. And since the oil was milky, I'm gonna go ahead and do the water pump seals and also the head gasket on this while I have it apart. It's just much easier to take care of that stuff while the engine is already out. And it's not exactly pricey, and it's worth it knowing that the next person that gets this bike is going to have something that runs for a good amount of time. The other thing I did want to mention was this bike, it's actually sad. It doesn't have that many hours on it. It has 16 hours on the, I believe that's a factory timer on this thing, but it shows 16 hours of ride time on this engine, which really is not a lot. I mean, comment below, tell me if I'm crazy, but I don't think 16 hours is a whole lot. I've seen some of these bikes with 90 plus hours on them. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this thing over to the workbench, get it torn down, check everything out, and then we'll be getting this thing back to running and riding.
Because the oil was incredibly milky, and I don't have a great method on hand to tell if the head gasket is actually blown, and they're also fairly cheap enough online, I decided to just go ahead and swap that out as well while I'm in here checking on the valve clearances and fixing this case up so that hopefully this doesn't happen to this bike ever again.
Not bad.
Now we have to prepare the cases for welding. I'm going to start by cutting out the section that is broken so I can clean the broken edges of aluminum very well, since the aluminum has to be extremely clean when TIG welding it. Not too shabby, Ace.
Alright guys, so we got the pieces welded for above the idler gear. I got that all filed down. It's very straight. I took a straight edge, was able to place that across the aluminum, put a Harbor Freight clamp on the two pieces of aluminum to hold it into place, put a couple tacks on it, and then run my beads and send this thing to the moon. Now, I don't claim to be a professional welder, but the welds aren't that bad. For some guy in his garage who's been doing this for, just a couple years in his spare time, I think this turned out really great. I do think it will hold up very, very well. The welds are super thick. There's tons of penetration. It was coming through to the other side of the case, so I know they're nice and thick and deep, just like she likes it. And with that being said, let's get the top end on this thing and get this thing out for a ripper, guys. Let's go.
Now that the cases have been prepared and welded to the best of my abilities, it's time to put this beast back together piece by piece in hope that she will be fired up and not have any major issues on the first start. One thing I'd like to note here is that the cam journals looked absolutely beautiful on this bike and showed no signs of wear or potential future issues. The timing chain was also very clean with no hiccups within its movement. Onward motion to getting this thing ripping again. I did also torque the head studs to 36 foot-pounds and the outer two 8mm bolts on the head to 7 foot-pounds. I wound up having to pull the cams back out since I had placed them to show how to time this engine properly and didn't record it.
Alright guys, checking the timing on these is pretty simple. You have a couple marks on the cams. You have these two dots about 45 degrees away from each other on the intake cam. You line that up with the head here. You have two dots on the exhaust side. You line up your one here on the flat of the head. As you can see, that lines up pretty flat. And you have to count 13 pins from dot to dot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pins from dot to dot. And then down here on the crank to make sure this thing is on compression stroke. See if I can get you guys a good view. Yeah, you see those double lines right up there to the right? Those should be pretty close, if not dead on, with your line here on the case. With your line right here. Those two lines right there should line up with that. And we're a smidge off, but obviously if you take this and rotate this just that smidge, everything still lines up perfect. Tensioner is in. Everything is torqued down, chain is taut. We are good to go. Let's get the rest of this together.
Alright, let's finish up the last few lingering things before we can get this beastly started and back to ripping and racing again. Well, while we are at it, I decided to buy a water pump rebuild kit and rebuild the water pump with some new seals. That way we know for sure there won't be any issues with the water and oil mixing anymore. Alright guys, the time has come for the first start of this beastly, man, what a headache this thing is giving me. But I got a little treat for you guys. I know how y'all love when I kick stuff over in sandals, so feet of steel, here we go. Let's see if we can get this 250 up fired up. How many kicks do you think it can take to get to the center of this 250?
Pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Ain't no errors, baby.
All right, what do you say we take this thing for a little test ride. See how it pans out. Fires up pretty easy. I'm happy with that. Oh, she's got some snot. Take her for a little test ride first. Oh yeah, she comes right up. I'm not a huge fan of these bikes. I do like that they have such a high RPM, but they just seem to come up with little nagging issues from time to time. Like obviously Suzuki and Kawasaki had a problem with softer valves for a long time where they had to, you have to shim the valves a lot. And it's just one of those things, you know? Every bike has a downfall. This one, just some of the materials on it aren't that strong. I mean, I guess that's why the case breaks also, you know? It's just not that strong of a material. I know it's aluminum and magnesium, but woo, she rips. Stands right up, man. I'm gonna do some flip-flop hole shots here. Yes, I am riding this in flip-flops, but I need to empty my pockets out because I don't want stuff flying out when I fly off the back of this thing. It sounds healthy, and that's the main thing here. Alright, let's do a little hole shot, yeah? Dude, holy crap. Wasn't expecting that because I didn't give her the beans yet. That's the first time I gave her the beans. Oh my god. I'm kind of nervous to give her the full Monty because I got the flip-flops on, so. And my grass is just starting to grow back in too. A fun little bike, man. Whoever gets this one's gonna be pretty happy, I think. Fuel injected, none of the carburation hassle. I want to try and do a wheelie hole shot, get a nice title picture for y'all, because this thing really is snappy. I'm not as good on a bike as I am on a quad though. That's the only problem. Now why don't we take this one and move it over a little bit and we get a nice side view of that thing ripping by. Yeah, I'm digging it. Little Yoshi pipe on the back. This thing eats, man. I I thought it was going to be a clapper. I'm really shocked at this one. I'll do a couple of them because sometimes it takes a couple. But it sounds good, man. The valves are in spec and she's running, riding good, man. I'll do a fluids check again. Woo, I gotta watch, I'm in flip-flops. I hope that was a good one. Alright guys, as always, if you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments below what you want to see in the next one. See y'all later, peace out.